say you and I travel back in time 1,000,000 years. Tell us about the future of being human. What is possible? Maybe the limitations we've imagined are not the real limitations. In biology, there's many species immortal. Maybe our previous imaginations are too limiting.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
So thank you, Brian. Thank you to be here, have the time, and discuss your vision and your journey. The topic of anti-aging, live longer, live healthier, I think it's in every people's mind about certain social level. But first of all, I think a lot of people just know a little bit of you through all the crazy stories. But here, I want to know a full picture of who you are and why you do what you do. So I know you started this journey about 4 years ago. So maybe you can start from what happened in 4 years, which triggered you, pay attention to this topic and do all this practice by yourself in your own way.
Yeah, when I was 21 years old, I made the decision that I wanted to spend my life trying to improve the lives of others. And that was because I lived in Ecuador for 2 years when I was age 19 to 21, and I lived among extreme poverty. And I came there from the United States. Even though my family was poor in the US, we still had our basic needs taken care of. We had food to eat. If we got sick, we went to the hospital. When I was in Ecuador among extreme poverty, that wasn't the case. Not everybody had basic life necessities. And so I came back really moved by that, and I wanted to do something that would improve a lot of people's lives. But I didn't know what to do. And so I thought, I will go out and make a whole bunch of money as an entrepreneur, and then at the age 30, I'll have the opportunity to evaluate the possibilities in the world and then do something. And so I became an entrepreneur, and I started several companies, some small, some big, some failed, some succeeded. I sold my company Braintree Venmo for just under $1 billion, and I made $300 million on that sale. And so I fulfilled the objective of my 21-year-old self, and then it was a question.
To get money first, right?
Get money first.
Yeah.
And then it was a question, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
A lot of people, they'll make money and they'll buy a yacht and throw parties and drink a lot, and those things just didn't interest me. And so I had a whole bunch of money, but at that point, I was depressed. I was in terrible health.
Why? What happened? Yeah.
During that time period, several things happened. I mean, one is there's a culture in entrepreneurship and also just society generally that when you work hard, you do so at the expense of your health. So when you work really hard, you work 14, 16, 20 hours a day. You don't exercise, you eat whatever's convenient. In the US, it was pizza, and just everything that was convenient.
Yes.
And you don't really prioritize your health, and almost bad health is a badge of honor. Oftentimes there are stories where somebody will say, so and so stayed up 2 nights in a row. They coded all night long for 2 nights. They're a genius. They're amazing. And then other people want to be like them. And so I fell into the trap where I was ruining my health for professional success. So while I made $300 million on the company, I paid that price with my health. And I was depressed. I was 60 pounds. I was 60 pounds overweight. I felt awful, and it had really beat me down. So it was not only entrepreneurship, but I also had 3 children. So I was raising children at the same time, 3 small kids.
Obviously.
And they weren't sleeping, and I wasn't sleeping, and I was overeating. So that was really the impetus of, I had this goal at 21, I achieved it, but I was in really terrible health, and I was left there wondering, was it worth it?
Wow. I always know that you have a successful career, then you have the money, but I didn't know that it actually at a very young age, because of your experience in the extreme poverty, that you had a goal first, then you make money by entrepreneurship, then you have the money. That's impressive. Then how do you find this direction? Because if you want to do something for a greater good, for the society, for the human being, there are possibly many different routes.
That's right.
So what events or who have impacted you on choosing this lane, let's say?
Yeah. Well, I did a few things. So after I sold the company, I wanted to learn about science and technology because I didn't have a science degree. And so I started an investment firm, and I invested $100 million in companies building in biology. So synthetic biology, nanotechnology, genetics. And so I was working with these PhD scientists building in these fields because I wanted to learn what was happening. And my hypothesis was that just like we can take blocks and build them into towers or houses, you can do the same thing with biology. You can take an E. coli and program the E. coli to do what you'd like. So for example, if you want rose oil, instead of planting a rose plant, fertilizing it, watering it, and then harvesting it to get the rose oil, you can take an E. coli, which is a little organism, and program the E. coli to produce rose oil. So you can program biology to do these things we otherwise wouldn't do. And there's many examples like that. So I invested in the field of science and technology to become familiar. And then I also built a company with doing a brain interface. So getting the brain imaged is really important, but it's very, very hard. MRI machines are big and expensive and claustrophobic. So we built one of the world's best imaging devices you just put on your head, like a helmet, and it images. All the while, I was trying to figure out this question in my mind of what to do, like how to fulfill the promise of being 21 years old. And so I organized several dinners around the United States and with some of the smartest friends I have, and I would give them a thought experiment. This is in 2017. I said, let's imagine we exist in 2050, the year 2050, and we look back at 2017 and we say, we're so excited that 2050 is such an amazing life. What did we do in 2017 that made this possible? And then I listened very carefully to people's thoughts.
I'm interested about the dinner you just mentioned. So what type of people? You said you invited the smartest people from different fields. So what type of them?
Yeah, it was entrepreneurs, philosophers, academics, scientists, a whole wide range of people. And so what I thought was interesting is that if you give people a thought experiment, like imagine what happens in the future, what I found is most people have very similar patterns of thought. And so if you were to pose this question right now, most people would talk about what they're familiar with that is happening in the world right now. But it's very hard to see what's not happening. And so we see the obvious things in front of us. And so the conclusion of the dinner, so I made a rule for myself, is I listened to everybody's responses, and then I made a rule, I can't do anything anybody said.
Okay. Okay.
So I have to find something that nobody's thinking about, that nobody brought up. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to map the space that everybody's minds were at. But we know throughout history that the next great thing is the thing nobody's thinking about. And I wanted to figure out what that was. And so that put me on a path of what not to do. And then I needed to figure out what to do. And that came through a second thought experiment. So this one was, imagine you're in the 25th century. So let's just transport ourselves in time over a few hundred years. And you're there, and we're looking back at the early 21st century, our time right now, and they're observing us. And they say, we're so grateful what Homo sapiens did at this point in time, that intelligence is now thriving in the galaxy. Like we have this marvelous existence. What do they say we did? And I asked that question to myself, and I thought about it for several years. Now, to help me understand this, we think back, like for example, when you and I would talk about the 3rd century, we would probably identify one or maybe two things that happened in the entire century. Even though there were a lot of people with a lot of things happening, a lot of kingdoms, a lot of war, a lot of politics, a lot of drama.
Just a very few we'll talk about.
Exactly. We compress things over time into a very small thing. The same is true with the future. They will take our time and place and compress us and say just one or two or three things happened in the time period. And I was trying to figure out what would they say. And I think they would probably say two things. One is this is the time when humans gave birth to super intelligence. We built AI, and we built a form and system of intelligence that exceeds us in all ways. And two, they would say, this is the moment where we realized that we could begin dramatically extending our lifespans to some unknown length. That instead of imagining 70, 80 years, 150, 200, 300, 400, like no limit on what we imagine. I think that's what they will say about this time and place. And so I concluded that the thing I would do would be to demonstrate that possibility that we can reimagine what it means to be human and how long and how well we can live.
If you record now, so what are some of the best inspiration you had talking with people?
Yeah, I organize these dinners at my home. I do them every week or so. I have about 15 to 20 people that come over to the house, and I pose several questions in the form of thought experiments. And it's really meant to imagine what it's going to be like to be human. Like, so if we imagine, let's say you and I travel back in time 1,000,000 years, and we're there with Homo erectus. They have an axe in their hand. That's the technology of the day. And let's say, tell us about the future of being human. What is possible? They're probably going to say things like, well, we're going to hunt more. We're going to find, better sources of food. We're going to, have different wars. But they wouldn't be able to tell you about mobile phones or about the internet or about quantum mechanics or about germ theory or about microscopic objects like bacteria. And so the possibility is right now that we humans, as we look into this future with rapid advances in AI, we may be just like Homo erectus. We may not have any models that help us understand the future and how we imagine it. And so these dinners I organize are meant to explore. It's an exercise in being humble, that while we think we know a lot, we actually may know little. And if the little we do know is that we want our health and vitality above all, and we want to really succeed, all of us, in our individual lives and collective lives, that's the most important thing. So that, to me, those conversations are incredibly stimulating because you're basically trying to explore all of existence. Like, what do I know? What don't I know? What is going to be possible? I'd say those are probably my favorite.
Hearing that, I think in the future, if you can invite people from different culture, but with the same level of intelligence, that will give you a lot more inspiration.
Yeah.
Because in different culture, probably thinking or imagine future will be also different.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I'm doing 3 of these conversations in China this week.
In Chengdu or Shanghai?
Both.
Both. Yeah. What triggered your trip in China this time, and why the 3 cities?
Yeah.
Chongqing, Chengdu, and Shanghai.
Yeah. There's so many wonderful places to be in China. We had the hardest time selecting. We wanted to have a variety of cities because each city is so distinct with its own cultural practices. So we chose 3 we thought would be a nice entry point into getting familiar with Chinese culture and the people and saying hi. And we want to come back and do many more cities. It's such a beautiful, vast country, and we want to do as many as we can.
The dinner you mentioned, what type of people you're thinking to invite to get inspiration from?
Yeah, everybody. So it's teachers, scientists, politicians, entrepreneurs, everyone, artists. We really try to have a really broad variety of thoughts because when you pose these questions, everybody has a unique way of understanding the world, a unique way of understanding the future, and when they speak, it helps other people update how they understand the world. And so I make a few rules in the conversation. One is that everybody talks. Because usually in conversation, you'll have 1 or 2 people who talk.
The main talker.
Main talker.
Yeah.
They talk a lot more, and so you need to. So we set a rule: you could only speak 3 times, and once you speak 3 times, that's it. And that then, so if you're a talker, you spend your 3 talks in the first few minutes, and then others get a chance to speak, and so everybody talks. And the other rule is you need to be concise. So when you speak, 10, 20 seconds. But you can't do a 2-minute monologue, you can't do a 5-minute monologue, it has to be really concise. And when you set those rules, it's a really productive conversation where everybody gets to chime in with how they're thinking about the world and also hear other people's perspectives to update how they think.
So if you document those kind of conversation, you can share with me. We can use some of them in our story.
Yeah.
I think it will be very
We've been doing this for several
valuable.
years, and
Yeah.
we want to shoot it. We need to shoot it. The challenge is when you do so, you need like 10 different cameras set up so you see each person.
Right,
So we just haven't done it, but I agree with you.
Then the vibe is different, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not comfortable being on camera,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it changes. So yes, I agree with you. We definitely want it on camera because many people walk away from these conversations that it's one of the most important conversations of their entire lives. We say like we are all human. We all find ourselves on planet Earth in this part of the galaxy. And there's many more things that unite us than things that divide us. And so it really is a unifying experience being human. And so, yeah, I would love to do them in China. I would love for more people to attend them and be aware of them.
So the second thinking practice you did is at the same dinner or different?
It followed about a year or two later.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how to think about this question. If I pose the question to you, what do you do? It's such a complicated question.
Yeah.
And so the easy answer is to say, well, what is everybody else doing? That's it. That's easy. And then if you don't want to do that, then how do you find another option? It's just very, very hard to see what is not seen.
Right. Then what happened after? So after you decided you probably want to tackle on the second thing that they can think about over the centuries, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
People can live longer. How long exactly? Maybe we don't know yet, but probably significant longer than we're doing right now. So
Yeah.
after you decided on this, what happened?
So then I knew that I wanted to figure out a way to become the healthiest person on planet Earth. Now, when you try to do that, you have to have some kind of standard that everybody agrees upon. So you can start with very simple things, like you can say, being obese is bad. You can also say that cancer is bad. You can say that high levels of inflammation are bad. So there are very easy things to say that every culture and every country would agree. We agree. Like no one's encouraging their citizens to be unhealthy, obese. No one's encouraging them to have high levels of cholesterol or inflammation. So I basically said, with markers that everybody agrees upon, I'm going to hire a team of 30 medical professionals. We're going to do two things. We're going to read all of the scientific literature ever published on how to extend lifespan. And then we're going to rank all those studies according to the best ones. And then we're going to take all the evidence and put it into me as the sole person. And then we're going to measure my body more than any human in history. And that's what we've done, is I'm now the most measured person in human history. And I have better health markers than anybody on the entire planet. So the plan actually worked. That we went through this methodical process, and we did it in me. And so now we share the entire process openly. We share with everybody what we do, what works, what doesn't work, our mistakes, our successes. It's an open science experiment.
I'm interested in how do you convince the 30 people, like you said, approach them? What's their initial feedback, hearing about your plan?
Yeah. Well, we would go, for example, to a cardiologist, and we'd say, okay, we just measured my heart. To measure my heart, we used MRI, we used ultrasound, we measured my max heart rate, we measured my heart rate recovery, we looked at any plaques, so we measured 10 or 20 different markers for my heart, and we said, according to the scientific literature, my heart's anatomy and its function is age 37. So I'm chronologically 47, my heart is 37. And then we'd say to the cardiologist, now, can you make it 36? Age 36. Can you make it age 35? Because chronological age is different than biological age. I can be 47 years old, and my heart can biologically be 37. So those are different. So we then tell the partners, help make my entire body younger biologically.
What's the most important milestone, will you say, during the past 4 years of practice?
There's a lot of disagreement about what to do for health. Everybody, I mean, in the United States, there's very different opinions about what to do to be healthy, and I think that's true in most countries. And then the challenge is most people who just want to know, like, I just want to know what to eat, I want to know how to exercise, I want to know if this is good or this is bad. It's very hard. And so our most significant accomplishment is that we became #1 in the world. And in doing that, it's a standard of excellence that everybody in the entire world acknowledges that these health markers are legitimate, and that we achieved that #1 spot through this scientific process. And I would say that's #1 is because we showed that through a methodical, science-driven approach, you can achieve a desired outcome. There are many other ways to also be healthy. So there are many practices. I just came from India, and they do many things. They have thousands, hundreds of years of culture on their various practices. China does as well. So there's so many things that we could incorporate. So we're open-minded to all those things also being part of the protocol. We tried to focus on a very narrow set of things the world has done in scientific evidence. So, but certainly not to the exclusion to say other things are not valuable. They certainly are, and we're very open. We just took a very narrow path to try to demonstrate a point.
How do you come to the decision to do, all the crazy things we know about during the past years, like blood change, like fat into your face? So how does this action fall into places into your plan?
Yeah, so I'll do the face fat first. As you age, you lose fat in the face, and that's one of the reasons why people look old. Is you lose fat, plus you lose collagen and elastin firmness, so your skin sags, it wrinkles, it discolors, and you just become pretty gaunt. Now, most people, when they try to fix that, they'll do so with Botox and with filler. Now, those aren't real solutions, they're just masking the problem. And we wanted to say, can we legitimately make my face younger that has the same levels of fat and collagen and elastin? Now, when you say legitimate, there's only a few options. You can put fat into your face, you can do these collagen stimulators. So we tried to do everything that is scientifically aligned with rejuvenation. And so, yes, you can put your own fat into your face. The problem was I didn't have enough fat on my body. So I took a fat from a donor and put it in my face. I had a very severe reaction, which is a good learning lesson. But we're trying to demonstrate, based upon what science says is possible, we wanted to try it. Because we didn't want to do cosmetic surgery, we didn't want to do filler, we didn't want to do Botox. And so, and a lot of people, they assume I do those things. I don't. The second question for plasma. So that was, the origin of that is that one day my father called me and he was panicking because he's a lawyer and he had written something down, and then he walked away from his desk, he returned, and he saw that what he had written down it was gibberish. It made no sense. And he realized he was losing his mind and he wasn't aware of it. Now that shocked him because he imagined that if he ever got into a state where he was losing his mind, he would take note. He would say, like, I'm forgetting things, or I'm not as sharp as I used to be. But it alarmed him because it was invisible. And so I was talking to him on the phone, and that day my team and I had spoken about this new therapy, which was plasma exchange. There was a study that showed that a old rat and a young rat were actually sewn together, and they shared a circulatory system. They shared the same blood flow. And in that process, the old rat became much younger. And so the theory was that this was the plasma, that if you take a liter of plasma from my body, blood is half plasma, half blood. So you take the blood out, you separate the plasma, which is yellow, you put the blood back in the body. We took a liter of my plasma out, and we put a liter of my plasma into my dad. And so in doing that, my father, his speed of age, everyone has a speed of aging clock in their body of how fast they age. It slowed down by 25 years. So he went from aging at the rate of a 71-year-old to the rate of a 46-year-old, and that was substantial. And so it was successful, and it was actually, the result was the same as they saw in the studies with the rats.
Impressive. So it sounds like you really have this, experiment, spirit, that if you read something or your team read something, you think it's worth, try it out, then you will do it, right? Then you see the result if it's working or not. So for me, it's a very, scientific or experimental spirit, behind it.
Exactly. I mean, it would be like if you and I say, we have a hypothesis that gravity is real. And to test that hypothesis, we're going to take this bottle and I'm going to let go and drop it. And if it drops and it falls into the floor, we know that gravity, is real. And so we do the same thing. We say, what is a hypothesis of something I eat, or an exercise I do, or a bedtime routine, or a supplement I take, or a therapy? We say we have a hypothesis it will do the following thing inside the body, and then we test it. And so it's very rigorous, and we measure everything. That's what has made our effort unique in all the world, is we quantify it and we follow the scientific method.
Last night, I was reading some of the interview you did before, and I think there's one from Time magazine also, but there's a phrase that really resonates with me. It says you have a way of Silicon Valley kind of thinking, where you value measures a lot, and you have this, engineer thinking to solve problems. In general, what do you think, your life story and the environment or surrounding you live by influence your way of thinking, or how do you make your decision? How do you make your plan?
Yeah.
How do you judge what's worth doing and what's not into your journey?
Yeah. I grew up in a small religious community. My grandpa had a farm. I spent a lot of time growing crops, irrigating, taking care of the animals. And that community was largely based upon storytelling. So if you wanted to convey information, you told a story. You didn't communicate it with scientific fact. It wasn't a rigorous quantitative world. And then one day I read a book by the economist Gary Becker, who was a Nobel Prize winner at the University of Chicago. And he wrote this book titled The Economics of Life, where he explained world phenomena in the terms of economics. He used mathematical models and equations to express the world. And it was this moment I'll never forget. I thought, you mean you can express the world in equations, not just stories? And it changed forever in how I think, that I thought it was such an elegant approach. Like, storytelling is beautiful. It has so many advantages. It also falls short in many ways. Like, it would be very hard to do what I do based upon storytelling. You really need a rigorous quantified approach. And so I went to the University of Chicago. I became trained up in quantitative frameworks. And so that was really the origin story of how I became to have an affinity for data and science and methods.
Now it all makes sense. So now talk about the blueprint project. How do you come up with the idea? Why you call it blueprint, and what does this plan do?
Yes, the blueprint is a reference to the future of being human. And so in this moment is such a special moment because technology is moving so fast. And I wanted to create a plan for how we as a human race could succeed. And so I thought the most important thing is that in this process, we are healthy and vibrant and clear-headed about the preciousness of life. And so what I tried to do is, instead of talking about really big global problems like climate change or AI or the dangers between conflicts, I wanted to talk about something everybody could be united on, which is that we all know what it feels like to get a good night's sleep. We all know what it feels like to exercise really well. We know what it feels like to eat well. We know what it feels like to do unhealthy things. So we all have these intuitions, but society kind of has these cultural norms that we don't do them, even though we know we feel better when we do them. And so Blueprint was an effort to say, hey, everybody, we all know that being healthy is great, and we want to be healthy. So can we build a process and systems so that everybody can be healthy? And that's what I've been trying to do, is that trying to demonstrate, for example, that if you are ambitious as a person, you work very hard. Let's say you even have 2 jobs. You can do basic things in life to take care of your health. Like, for example, you can identify a specific bedtime, and you can be consistent with that bedtime every night. I can go to sleep in a minute, maybe, if you want. I can explain sleep habits, but maybe not in this question.
Do you have a service or product under blueprint yet. What's your future plan?
Yeah, we do. So when I built Blueprint as a scientific experiment, I wanted to demonstrate that we are this new era of being human. I wanted to be that human of what, like I wanted to basically be an example of what a future human might look like. Like if you could take a human from 2050 and bring them back in time, how would they take care of their health? So I'm trying to be a person from the future in this moment. And so I did that, and then it went viral around the world. And a lot of people said, I love this, I want to do this, but it's way too hard. So I said, okay, I understand. And so we built a set of products so people could do it and make it easy and low cost. And so that's what we have today. It's actually available in China right now. And so what we did as the origin of this is when I first started taking supplements, let's just say the supplement is 2,000 IU of vitamin D. We would test that at a lab and say, does it really have 2,000 IU of vitamin D? Most of the time it didn't. So what we found is labels were not accurate. And then we'd also test food. We'd say, if this food says it has 30 grams of protein, but then what levels of toxins are in the food? And so we just tested everything all the time. And we found that the labels were incorrect and there were actually quite a lot of environmental toxins. And so we built, we have food now from all over the world. We tested extensively and we published the third-party lab results. So now it's available to everybody. I think it's possible that is the healthiest program in the entire world, built upon evidence and built upon third-party lab results. Now again, this is not to say that there's other things we're missing. We certainly are. There's many health practices all over the world, many cultures that we'd like to incorporate. We just try to go through this methodical process, but we really have tried to do people a favor of trying to really measure and quantify everything so everybody eats the healthiest things.
And then maybe we can go to what we can do. For instance, sleep.
Yes.
Because like you said, many of our Tatler China community, they're extremely vision oriented. They want to achieve their own meaning in life.
That's right.
So in the cost of health, I think for many of the people, especially the successful one, the one with self-motivation.
Yes.
So if I don't have that much of time, if I cannot really, to do the diet like you do, or to do all this measurement, if I don't have those, luxury, what can I do?
Yeah.
Improve health and to hopefully live longer, healthier.
Yeah. So there's many things you can do. A lot of people think that I'm so extreme that there's no way they could do anything close to it. Actually, most of my health benefits come from a few really basic things that I do every day. So I'll share a few of them that everybody can do and they don't cost any money. So sleep is the number one most important thing that anyone does any given day. And so what you want for sleep, just so you know the objective, is when your head hits the pillow, you want to be asleep within just a few minutes.
Yeah.
You don't want to be awake for an hour or 2 hours. You want to be asleep very fast. You want to sleep roughly 2 hours of deep sleep, roughly 2 hours of REM sleep, and be up for less than 30 minutes a night. So what you don't want is to go to bed and you're up for an hour. You don't want to be up 3 or 4 times. You don't want to wake up feeling groggy. You want to feel excellent. So I achieved the best sleep score in human history. I got 8 months of perfect sleep.
Wow.
So of the device I have, they have millions of users. I was the number one sleeper out of all those people.
Wow.
And so here are the 5 things I did that everyone else can do that are very easy.
Yeah.
So one is you need to change your mindset so that you consider yourself to be a professional sleeper. Now that's different because right now most people treat sleep as they'll do it when they have time. They'll do it if it's after their show, or they'll do it after their business meeting, or after a social event, or after whatever. And people take their lives seriously, their profession seriously. They show up on time. The same as for sleep. That it needs to be taken seriously. Number 2 is the last meal of the day will have a dramatic impact on one's sleep. So a general rule is eating at least 2 hours before bedtime for your final meal of the day is a good practice. So if your bedtime is 10 p.m., you'll finish eating at 8 p.m. And then experiment with 7 p.m., 6, 5, 4. And what's going to happen is as you push your last meal of the day back, you're going to see your resting heart rate go down. So that means when your head hits the pillow, your body is almost finished digesting food, and it has less to do, which means your heart is calm, and you're going to sleep much deeper. So I know this from experimentation. If I eat 2 hours before bed, so right now, my last meal of the day is 9 hours before bed. So I have my last meal of the day at roughly 11:30 a.m. So before I came here to speak with you, I finished all my food for the day. Yes.
Yeah.
And so now people do not need to do what I do. That's 9 hours. That's like on the extreme side. They can start with 2 hours and then try 3 hours. But just pushing your last meal of the day back a little bit and being mindful of the foods. Sometimes heavy foods like breads, pastas, alcohol, they increase your heart rate. And every time your heart rate increases, your sleep quality goes down. So suggestion number 2 is just be mindful of your last meal of the day. Now, if you're out with business associates or friends, you can squeeze in some light food. You can have some food on your plate. You can eat a little bit. Just try to have it be light. So you can still gather with friends and family. You can still do business events. Just try to eat lighter than you otherwise would. And it's a nice positive step. Number 3 is consistency. So if your bedtime is at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., try to be in bed within 30 minutes of your bedtime every day. So the body loves consistency. It wants routine and habit. So when I was doing my 8 months of perfect sleep, I was in bed within 1 minute of my bedtime every night. And it was very powerful that my body would fall asleep instantaneously, then sleep throughout the night.
Okay.
The number 4 is you want to be aware of lighting around you. So blue light suppresses melatonin production, which limits sleep. So by around 6, 7 in the evening, I'll wear blue light blocking glasses. And I also have an application on my computer that blocks blue light. That helps calm the body down. And then I also have a lamp with red light. So I have a lamp with a red bulb. So I'll turn red light on in my house. Number 5 is a wind down routine. At the end of every day, all of our brains are trying to reconcile the day. So we may be thinking about a conversation we had in the day that we're upset about. Maybe we're mad at somebody. Maybe we forgot to do something that's really important and now we have to reconcile with that. Maybe we feel stressed about something that may or may not work out in our favor. And so the brain is trying to say, like, I have all these open questions and I want you to address it. So a 1 hour time frame where I have an internal dialogue with myself, where if I have a thought that says, today you had that conversation and it wasn't very nice, right? Maybe I said something that offended the person. Now I feel bad. I have to say to myself, okay, thank you, anxious Bryan. I appreciate you telling me your thoughts, right? And now we're going to walk through it and address your concern. But I have a monologue with myself because there's various versions of me. There's ambitious Bryan and concerned Bryan and task Bryan. And so doing that, I'm able to calm myself down. So when my head hits the pillow, I'm not spinning on all those thoughts. I've reconciled it. Because you know and I know that if you're very wound up and you go to bed, not only are you thinking about all those things when you try to fall asleep, when you wake up, same thing, and that's going to prevent you from having deep sleep. So those 5 things, if you can do those 5 things, you will achieve the best sleep in your entire life. And here's the best thing, you will become a better parent, child, brother, sister, coworker, boss. You will be better in everything you do in life. And that is counterintuitive because most people think sleep is for the weak. Sleep is for people, like they'll sleep when they're dead. But sleep is actually the most important thing every human on the planet does every day.
I have a specific question. Sometimes if I eat earlier, I feel hungry.
Yeah.
So is it normal? I have to conquer that at the beginning? Or how should I do?
Yes, initially you will experience hunger. And the key thing is to associate that hunger with feeling great in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and the way you can measure this effectiveness is right before you go to bed, measure your resting heart rate. So you can use a device like this, or just put your fingers here on the side of your neck, and then measure your pulse. Measure it for 6 seconds, multiply it by 10, and that's your resting heart rate.
Yeah.
Now I know when I eat 9 hours before bed, when I lay down to go to sleep tonight, my resting heart rate is going to be 44 beats a minute. Now when it's 44, I know I'm guaranteed to have a perfect night's sleep. Now if I were to go out and eat a lot of food at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., my resting heart rate is not going to be 44, it's going to be 54 or 64. And if that happens, my sleep is probably about 30 to 50% less. And so it's a very strong effect.
Like you said, what you do is quite extreme, and maybe normal people won't push it so hard.
Yes.
But what does it like to live in the extreme life on this journey for 4 years? So during these 4 years, are there moments you are extremely proud and extremely sad? Living so extreme because of you want to test, you want to try with your own body.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've never been happier in my entire life. And I think it's interesting because most people see me and they imagine that I must be miserable. They think I may be miserable, and I've never been happier. And so I guess I would say this, that I'm healthier than I ever have been in my entire life. My mental health is better than it has been in my entire life. And I personally have never encountered somebody who says, I feel so healthy, I just feel awful. Most people who are healthy feel happy. And so I think it's really just like a cultural thing that when people see others doing those kinds of things, it's not clear to them that maps to happiness. But then most of us know if we get a good night's sleep, if we exercise and eat well, we all know how happy we feel. So I think it's just a minor adjustment. But yeah, I've never been happier. And I think it's just people reconciling that you can be healthy and happy.
What about the people around you? For instance, your son and your close friends. So are their reaction of your journey different along the way? So what's the status now? People, really close people around you.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of good lessons on how to build great relationships. So I'm very happy about that, where I have 3 children and I am a very attentive father. So I was very focused on raising good children and being there for them, teaching them important lessons. And I've really enjoyed being a father. I enjoy playing that role in other people's lives as well, encouraging them to have positive health habits. I enjoy them also poking at me, making fun of me. And because I'm a peculiar person, I'm eccentric in many ways, and there's a nice light energy where they freely make fun of me, and it's a lot of fun. So we really have a really nice culture with friends and family that it's open and honest and funny, and nobody really takes themselves all that seriously.
Then let's talk about decision making. You must make a lot of decisions during the years. So let's take last year, the past 12 months. What's your best decision, and what's your most difficult? What's the toughest decision you have to make, and why?
Yeah, the best decision was to make no decision. And so when we started this, we were observing the world and saying that when I go from point A to point B, I enter the address into a navigation system, and the navigation system tells me what streets to turn on, how to get there. It tells me the traffic patterns. I don't have streets memorized, and nor do I know traffic patterns. And so in that situation, the algorithm has more data and is better than you at knowing which path to take. Now, we wondered, is it the case that we could build an algorithm that would take better care of my health than I can? Would it know more about my body, have more data and access to better science, and make decisions for me? So that's what we've done over the past 4 years. We've tried to build an algorithm that makes all my decisions for me. So instead of me going to a restaurant and saying, like, I see all these foods, which one am I going to choose? The algorithm decides for me what to eat, when to exercise, what to do. And that is actually, a lot of people would hear that and they'll say, oh no, that sounds terrible and sounds awful. It actually is really liberating. It's so nice because the decisions are made for me. I get the benefit of feeling healthy, and I actually don't miss the bad stuff at all.
Maybe the last 2 questions. First, what's your priority for, let's say, near future, for the next 1 to 3 years?
In every country, there are athletes that the population admires. And they're people who demonstrate great physical ability. And oftentimes behind that physical ability is some discipline on sleep and diet and exercise. And I want to be seen as a rejuvenation athlete, as a new professional sport that people can play, That would be one. Right now, people are confused. Like, who am I? What am I doing? How does this make sense? It's kind of weird. And I want to normalize that this is a brand new sport where you take all the world's best ways of being healthy and you try to create a global competition, because then you really push the boundaries of how healthy and how vibrant can we be. And the second thing is I want to change culture where, for example, it is okay to get 8 hours of sleep. You know, that people believe you can be ambitious as an entrepreneur or in business as a business person, ambitious as anything you want to do, and also go to bed on time, have your last meal of the day 2 hours, if not a few hours before. So I really want to normalize, because right now, health is not a priority for society. People are willing to trade it in for other things, and I'd love to change that cultural norm where everybody can safely be healthy, everybody feels better about life, and then as a society, we just all feel better about life. I think it would make a big difference in how we relate to each other, how we do our work in the world. So those two things I would hope to do in the next few years.
Okay, maybe the last one is a slightly bigger one. At this very moment, if you continue what you do, or most likely you can do it better with better knowledge, with better technology and stuff, what do you think it's the average, life expansion, the age that you can probably reach to? So that's number one. And number two is we talk about humanity a lot. So right now, with all your practice and knowledge, what's your definition of humanity or future humanity for the world we're living in?
Yeah. So I think, the current life expectancy, around the world is like mid-70s, thereabouts for most countries. I don't know why it's unreasonable for us to say in this moment that we just don't know how long and how well we can live. Does that mean 120, 150, 200, 300, 400? I think if you're looking at how fast technology is progressing, I think it's an interesting question that maybe our previous imaginations are too limiting. Maybe we can dream a lot bigger. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but given how fast we're discovering new things, given that we can now edit our genes, given that we can now develop brand new drugs with artificial intelligence, it's a brand new world. And so I personally don't feel like I can say anything intelligent about the future other than maybe the limitations we've imagined are not the real limitations. Biology, there's many species that are immortal. The jellyfish is immortal. So biology has solved immortality. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to be immortal, or I'm saying I want it. I'm just saying that biology has solved for this. It's not like we are saying that can we travel faster than the speed of light. We're not trying to break some basic concept of physics. We're just saying, can these principles of biology be applied to us? So I think we really can comfortably dream big. I think we can imagine ourselves as being very humble in this moment and on to a new era of possibility. And then for the future of humanity, I think the following could be true, that in the very near future, that we would all say existence is the highest virtue. And so right now we say, making money or achieving status or some of the things, that's the highest value thing. And we may shift to say, actually, just being alive is the most valuable thing. In saying that, then doing something to harm your health, you would say, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you do something that shortens your life or gives you a higher chance of having disease? That doesn't make any sense. And so in the same way, we look back at previous centuries and we say, that was really primitive, or they did things that don't make sense anymore. There's a possibility that in the future, we'll look back and say, when we did things that were not healthy, that didn't make any sense anymore. So I think we might be moving in that direction where we really value our existence much more than we do right now.
It is a totally different mindset for us to think about.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Bryan. Thank you so much. So whenever you have new discovery, make sure to let us know in the future.
I mean, we're all, humanity is all on the same team.
Right, right.
There's many things that divide us, individually, countries, but really we're all on the same team. And I think that health is a really great place for all of us to start.
Right.
That by getting good sleep and exercise and eating good foods, we're just going to be able to sort things out together much, much better.
Right, right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.
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 To don't
Toast
die.
to don't die. Yeah. And I noticed when we first meet, outside, I noticed the only one wearing so light with just a t-shirt in this weather. Is it because your health level?
Yeah. One of the interesting things we did anticipate is over the past 4 years, my body temperature has dropped 3 degrees Celsius. And so just to put that in context, you would need to swim in ice for over an hour in order to drop your body that much. Now, there's good evidence in both animal models and humans that a lower body temperature increases longevity. And so in that regard, yeah, I'm not sure if it relates to how I feel cold out there, but it has been an interesting thing that my metabolism has become substantially more efficient. My body just runs more efficiently and cooler. And so you see that in the scientific literature that it is generally associated with longer lifespans.